Ethan's ship groaned in the silence of space, the lights flickering as he drifted, barely scraping the edge of his next breath. He stared at the console, hands hovering over lifeless buttons, scanning for any last flicker of life on his vessel. Somewhere, far off, a signal blinked, faint, like a distant heartbeat. A distress signal, he muttered to himself, hardly believing it. Yet there it was, a faint pulsing light on his radar, as if a cosmic lighthouse were calling him to safety. He hesitated, watching it blink at the edge of his scope. Every instinct told him that this wasn't a haven, it was a trap. But with oxygen levels falling and his ship drifting dead in space, he was out of choices. He muttered under his breath as he punched the coordinates into the system, trying to ignore the uneasy chill that settled over him. If this is the end, at least it'll be less lonely. The ship whirred to life, barely holding as it nudged in the direction of the signal. His hands gripped the steering controls, fingers tight, knuckles pale against the dim glow of the console. Silence weighed heavy in the cabin, punctuated only by the strained hum of the failing engines. The asteroid loomed ahead, a jagged black behemoth turning slowly in the shadows, cast in a faint crimson from the distant light of a dying star. As he neared, he noticed faint structures on its surface, like ruins abandoned centuries ago. His breath caught. He hadn't expected to find civilization. Ethan activated his communicator, hoping for any sign of life. "This is Captain Ethan Hale, requesting permission to land. If anyone can hear me, I need assistance." Static crackled back, filling the silence with emptiness. He squinted at the radar. There was movement, a figure shifting near a makeshift landing pad on the asteroid's surface. Someone was there. Ethan prepared himself, grabbing his helmet and slipping it on with care. He punched a button, and the ship lurched toward a landing sequence, stuttering as its failing systems fought gravity. He winced as he felt the ship's rough, shaky landing. Exhaling, he stepped to the airlock, feeling a strange pull, an almost instinctual urge to proceed, even as unease prickled at the back of his mind. As he emerged, the silence deepened, and his boots hit the cold rock with a dull thud. The asteroid's surface was eerily quiet, the distant starlight casting strange shadows along jagged rocks and ancient pillars. Ruins stretched out in all directions, barely discernible against the dark. And there, at the edge of the landing pad, stood a figure cloaked in shadows. He squinted, and his stomach tightened. She stood unmoving, watching him from beneath a dark hood, her posture impossibly still. He stepped forward cautiously, his hand near his sidearm. "Are you the one who sent the signal?" he called, trying to keep his voice steady. Slowly, she stepped into the faint starlight, her face partially visible. Her skin was pale, almost luminous in the darkness, and her eyes gleamed, dark and magnetic, pulling him in with an unnatural intensity. "You're human?" she asked, voice soft and low, each word like a silken thread. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard as he felt the weight of her gaze settle over him. "Yes, and you?" She tilted her head slightly, a faint, almost amused smile touching her lips. "I'm Solara." The words seemed to resonate with an unspoken meaning, a name that hung in the air like a whispered secret. He nodded slowly, but his hand remained on his weapon. "What is this place? Why are you here?" "Lost souls find their way here," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or perhaps they're drawn here." Her gaze lingered on him, studying, as if weighing his worth. "But tell me, human, do you believe in curses?" Ethan's brow furrowed and he shook his head. "Curses? I don't have time for fairy tales." "Don't you?" Her voice was calm, almost playful. She stepped closer, and he felt the air grow heavier, a coldness seeping through his skin. "We are in the space between stars, where myths hold more truth than reality. If you doubt that, then why did you follow the signal?" He opened his mouth, then hesitated, finding himself unable to answer. In truth, he didn't know why he'd come. The signal had felt like a call meant for him alone. Solara continued, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. "You're a curious one, aren't you? But curiosity often carries a price." "And what price am I expected to pay?" he asked, his voice barely concealing his growing tension. She let out a soft laugh, dark and musical, and he could have sworn the shadows themselves seemed to shift around her. "That remains to be seen." He felt his heart pounding, but he fought to keep his composure. "Look, if you don't intend to help me, then I'll leave. I have my own problems." "Leave?" Her gaze turned sharp, her smile fading. "I'm afraid you won't be leaving anytime soon, Ethan." He froze, the sound of his name sending a chill down his spine. How do you know my name?" Solara stepped closer, and he felt the ground shift beneath him, as if her presence alone altered the space around them. "I know many things about you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "You came here not by chance, but because I called you." Ethan's hand gripped his weapon tightly. "Called me? I don't even know you." "But you will," she replied, her voice laced with a dark promise. "We're bound, you and I, by fate, or something darker." He took a step back, but her gaze held him captive, drawing him back in. Her eyes shimmered in the low light, and he noticed a faint hunger lurking beneath her calm expression. "Bound?" he echoed, feeling as if the word itself were a trap. "Yes," she said softly, her voice a low hum that resonated in the empty space around them. "Bound by a curse older than you can imagine. And you are the key to breaking it." Ethan's hand loosened on his weapon, caught between the pull of her words and the rising urge to flee. "And if I refuse?" Her smile was cold, a flash of sharp teeth that sent a shiver through him. "There is no refusal, Ethan. You've already stepped into my world." He stared at her, the weight of her words pressing down on him like the pull of a black hole. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something deeper kept him rooted to the spot, unable to tear his gaze from hers. What do you want from me?" he whispered. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, as if she were absorbing the very space around him. "Help me break these chains, and I will show you secrets that lie beyond the stars. But be warned, the path is not without sacrifice." He swallowed, his pulse pounding in his ears. Part of him wanted to turn and run, to escape the strange magnetic force she exuded, but another part, deeper, irrational, felt drawn to her, captivated by the promise of danger and darkness lurking in her words. "What choice do I have?" he asked quietly, more to himself than to her. She leaned in, her eyes piercing, almost triumphant. "None at all." Ethan's heartbeat echoed louder than the faint hum of the asteroid's atmosphere. Solara's gaze held him captive, her eyes glimmering with an unnatural hunger that sent a chill through his veins. Why me?" he asked, his voice barely steady. "What makes me the key to your freedom?" Solara's lips curled into a faint, almost sad smile, as if she'd been asked this question 1,000 times before. "Because, Ethan, you're alive. You're still untouched by the curse that binds this place. Unlike the others who came before you, you possess warmth." Her fingers reached forward, ghosting just above his chest, as if she could feel his heart beating from a distance. He fought the urge to pull back. "And what exactly does that mean for me?" "It means you're not like the lost souls scattered here, the ones who were not strong enough to break free. Their spirits haunt these ruins, too weak to resist the curse, but strong enough to linger." Her voice softened, laced with something like regret. "But you have a spark they lacked. You can open the gateway that binds me." Ethan shifted uneasily, glancing around at the desolate landscape. Shadows seemed to cling to every stone, whispering with a darkness that was hard to shake. He swallowed, feeling the weight of her words press down on him. "And if I don't help you, what happens then?" "Then I remain trapped. And you..." She tilted her head, a hint of sorrow flickering across her face. You will eventually succumb to the void, just as the others have. You'll wander this place until your spirit fades, slowly becoming one of the many lost souls here. She paused, letting the silence stretch before she whispered, It is not a kind fate, Ethan. The bleakness of her words seeped into him, filling him with a gnawing dread. Yet something in her tone, a faint, pleading note beneath the confidence, spurred him on. Despite the danger, despite the fear, he felt an urge to know more, to unravel the secrets she held so tightly. All right, he said finally, his voice barely louder than a breath. Let's say I believe you. How do I know you're telling me the truth? How do I know this isn't some elaborate trap? Solara's eyes softened, and for the first time he saw a glimpse of vulnerability in their dark depths. I do not blame you for your doubt, she murmured, her voice quieter, almost pained. But tell me, Ethan, if you had been trapped here for centuries, surrounded by silence, watching stars come and go without end, wouldn't you want to be freed? Even if it meant asking a stranger for help? He studied her, noticing the faint tremble in her fingers, the way her gaze shifted when she spoke of her imprisonment. She looked like someone burdened by an eternity of solitude, cursed to wait endlessly in the cold void. Taking a deep breath, he made his choice. If I'm going to help you, I need to know everything, no more secrets, no more cryptic warnings. A shadow flickered across her face, and she nodded slowly, as though bracing herself. Very well, human. Follow me. She led him away from the landing pad, her movements almost weightless as they wound through the ruins. The twisted, crumbling stones seemed to watch them as they passed, etched with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim starlight. Ethan's eyes lingered on one of the markings, drawn to its eerie glow. Those symbols, he said, nodding toward the carvings. What do they mean? They are fragments of the curse that binds this place, she replied softly, tracing her fingertips along the nearest stone. In my people's language, they spell out the terms of my exile, a reminder of the betrayal that led me here. Her voice held a strange sadness, and for a moment, Ethan glimpsed the weight of her past. Betrayal? He echoed, his curiosity piqued. Yes, she murmured, barely audible. Once, I was revered among my people. But my refusal to obey a sacred law brought ruin upon me. They deemed me a danger, something to be contained, and so they cast me here, bound by symbols that ensure I can never return. Ethan studied her, piecing together the fragments of her story. And now you need my help to break those symbols? She glanced at him, her dark eyes shining. Yes, the markings are attuned to life force. They require energy, something I can no longer generate alone. But with yours, he nodded slowly, piecing it together. With mine, you can weaken them enough to escape. Precisely. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. But be warned, Ethan. Once you give of yourself, there is no undoing it. The curse will claim a part of you, just as it has taken from me. The warning hung heavy in the air, and he felt a prickling at the back of his mind, as if some unseen force were already pulling at him. And what happens to me after? That depends on your strength. Her gaze lingered on him, searching as if she could see the threads of his fate unraveling before her. If you're strong enough, you may resist the worst of it, but if you're not... She trailed off, her expression darkening. He swallowed, trying to ignore the creeping dread. I don't suppose there's any other way. A faint smile touched her lips, but it was laced with sorrow. If there were, I would not ask this of you. They came to a halt before a massive stone door, inscribed with more of the strange symbols that seemed to pulse faintly in the darkness. Solara raised a hand, her fingers tracing one of the symbols, and the air around them grew cold, as if a silent power had awakened within the walls. This is the first seal, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Place your hand here, and let your energy flow. He hesitated, feeling the weight of her gaze on him. What will it feel like? Like a part of you is slipping away, she replied, her tone steady, yet tinged with a faint regret. But remember, it is only the beginning. Once the first seal is broken, there will be more. More? He echoed, frowning. She nodded. 3 in total. Each will demand a deeper sacrifice, but with each one broken, my strength and my freedom will grow. He clenched his jaw, his hand hovering just above the symbol. A voice in the back of his mind screamed at him to stop, to turn and run before he committed to this. But another voice, one deeper and more primal, urged him onward, drawn to the strange woman and her haunting words. Taking a deep breath, he pressed his hand against the stone. Instantly, a searing cold shot through him, as if the life were being siphoned from his veins. He gritted his teeth, fighting the urge to pull away, feeling the curse's dark tendrils wrap around him, pulling him into its depths. Solara watched him, her face a mask of calm, though he caught a flicker of sorrow in her eyes. "Hold on," she murmured, her voice soft but commanding. "It will pass." The pain ebbed slowly, replaced by an eerie numbness, as though he'd lost a part of himself he'd never get back. He pulled his hand away, staring down at his palm, which felt strangely hollow. What did it take?" he whispered, his voice barely steady. "Your vitality," she replied, her tone gentle yet firm. "The seal consumes a part of your essence, binding it to the curse. But now—" She placed her own hand against the symbol, and it glowed with a faint, eerie light before shattering into fragments, disappearing into the air like embers. The first seal was broken. Ethan staggered back, feeling his strength ebb, but Solara reached out, her cool hand steadying him. "You did well, Ethan," she murmured, "but the journey has only just begun." He met her gaze, the intensity of her stare sending a shiver down his spine. There was a hunger there, a fierce, insatiable yearning, but it was tempered by a strange softness, as though a part of her feared what lay ahead. "What now?" he asked, voice tinged with exhaustion. "Now," she said, stepping closer, her presence overwhelming. "We move forward. The next seal awaits." He felt her fingers linger on his arm, her touch cold, yet strangely comforting, and he realized with a start that he wasn't just helping her escape. He was becoming entwined with her fate, bound by a curse older and darker than he could fathom. And as he followed her into the depths of the ruins, he wondered if he would ever truly be free of her, or if he even wanted to be. The dark cavern seemed to stretch endlessly before them, echoing with whispers that tugged at Ethan's mind. The final seal was close. He could feel it pulsing, a heartbeat deep within the stone walls. Beside him, Solara moved with purpose, her movements more confident, her strength visibly renewed. Yet, an eerie stillness clung to her, as if she bore the weight of a truth she dared not share. Ethan glanced at her, sensing the storm beneath her calm exterior. "Solara, we're almost there, but you've yet to tell me everything, haven't you?" She stopped, her back to him, the silence drawing tight around them. For a long moment she said nothing, her gaze fixed on the shadows ahead. Finally she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You are right, Ethan. There is one last thing you deserve to know, a truth I have kept hidden." He crossed his arms, wary but resolute. "I'm listening." Solara turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "When the last seal is broken, I will be freed, yes. But the curse, it requires more than just these stones to release me. The energy it took to bind me here is ancient, powerful. To counter it, the final seal demands an equal offering." Ethan's heart clenched. An offering? What kind of offering? Her eyes softened, regret mingling with something else, something that tugged painfully at his own heart. "A life, Ethan. Yours. Or mine." The air left his lungs, replaced by a bitter cold. "So, you brought me here to die?" No. She shook her head vehemently, stepping closer, the urgency in her gaze piercing through his anger. I had hoped that, by some miracle, we could find another way. But the curse is ancient and unyielding. It will not release me unless I sacrifice, or unless you do. He swallowed, the weight of her words sinking in. And if I choose not to? What happens then? Then I remain bound. And you. She trailed off, sadness dimming the fierce light in her eyes. You will be trapped here, just as I have been. The curse won't let you leave either. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. There has to be another way, he muttered, more to himself than to her. But deep down, he knew there wasn't. Every step, every breath had led him here, bound inescapably to this fate. Solara's hand touched his shoulder, grounding him. You don't have to do this, Ethan, she said softly. I wouldn't blame you if you chose to save yourself. I have lived in darkness for centuries. A little longer makes no difference. He met her gaze, searching for deception, for something that would make this choice easier. But there was only sorrow there, and a kind of reluctant acceptance. In that moment, Ethan realized the depth of her loneliness, the unyielding despair of an eternity spent waiting. A voice, deep and resolute, rose within him. No, he said, his voice steady. If anyone deserves freedom, it's you. I came here of my own choice, and I don't know why, but I believe you're worth it. Solara's eyes widened, her composure cracking, and for a fleeting moment, he saw the woman beneath the curse, the woman who'd once been proud and fierce, reduced to a ghost by forces beyond her control. She reached out, her hand trembling, her fingertips brushing his cheek. Ethan, I never thought anyone would. He placed his hand over hers, feeling the coolness of her skin against his warmth. Tell me what I need to do. The final seal lay before them, carved into the floor of a massive stone chamber. Ancient symbols glowed faintly around its edge, pulsing with a dark, almost malevolent energy. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself as Solara guided him to the center of the symbol. You need only speak my name, she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. And then, let go. A shiver ran through him as he prepared to speak, but she interrupted, her hand gripping his arm. Wait. Before you do this, I want you to know that I will carry this debt forever. In the next life, or whatever lies beyond, know that I will search for you. He looked at her, struck by the raw vulnerability in her gaze. I believe you, Solara. Then, with one last glance at her, he whispered, Solara. The ground trembled as he felt a surge of energy race through him, cold and hot at once, tearing through his veins like fire. He clenched his fists, feeling his strength ebb as the curse drank hungrily from his essence. Pain lanced through him, sharper and colder than anything he'd ever felt, as if the life were being siphoned from his very core. Through the haze of agony, he saw Solara watching him, her face etched with both awe and sorrow. And then, as the curse consumed the last of his strength, darkness claimed him. He awoke to silence. The pain had faded, replaced by a strange numbness that blanketed his senses. He blinked, disoriented, struggling to understand where he was. He was no longer in the chamber. Instead, he found himself surrounded by stars, floating in a vast expanse of light. Then, a voice reached him, a familiar, gentle whisper. Ethan. He turned, and there she was, standing before him, no longer bound by the darkness. She glowed with a soft, ethereal light, her features transformed, freed of the curse that had held her captive for so long. Solara, he murmured, his voice barely a breath. She approached him, her eyes filled with a profound sorrow. You saved me, she whispered, her hand reaching out to touch his face, and in doing so, you saved yourself. Confusion twisted within him. What do you mean? The curse, she explained, her voice gentle. It needed a life to break, yes, but it has always been bound to choice. By willingly offering yourself, you didn't lose your life. You transcended it. His mind spun, struggling to grasp her words. Then, am I dead? She shook her head. Not dead, no. You've been freed from the binds of this world. You're in between, caught in a place where the rules no longer hold. Ethan looked down at his hands, marveling at the faint glow that emanated from them. So, what happens now? A small smile touched her lips. Now, we are free to choose. We can stay here, together, in this light. Or, her gaze turned to the distant stars, we can return. Perhaps in another life, in another form. He considered her words, his heart aching with the weight of all that had transpired. He had saved her, and in doing so, he had discovered something far greater than himself. It was a mystery, a promise, woven into the very fabric of the stars around them. Looking into her eyes, he knew his choice. I want to stay with you, he whispered, the words soft but unbreakable. Solara's face softened, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Then let us be as the stars, forever entwined, bound by the light that has set us free. And together, hand in hand, they drifted into the vastness, leaving behind the shadows and curses of the past, bound only by the promise of a new beginning. The stars closed around them, carrying their story into the infinite, where it would linger whispered by the galaxies for eons to come. The emptiness of space stretched endlessly beyond the cockpit window, its inky vastness punctuated only by the distant glimmer of stars. Commander Liam Travers tapped a few buttons on the control panel, his eyes sweeping over the screens and readings, though his mind was far from the standard checks. His deep space mission was meant to be routine. Scan uncharted sectors, record anomalies, and report back to base. Instead, the strangest readings he'd ever seen blinked before him. An energy signature too concentrated, too vibrant to ignore. Something beckoned him, almost whispering through the hum of his ship's engines. Control, this is Commander Travers. I've encountered an anomaly, he reported, his voice echoing in the empty cabin. Static crackled in his earpiece, but no voice returned to him. The dense magnetic field surrounding this sector had already severed most communication, leaving him alone with the unknown. Liam exhaled sharply, contemplating whether to pull back or explore further. But curiosity got the better of him. It always did. Adjusting his course, he felt the ship's gentle pull as it approached a dense, emerald-green nebula glowing with pulses of energy. What in the hell, he muttered, gripping the controls. His voice fell into the silence as the ship drifted closer, moving through the misty emerald haze that filled the view. The readings on his console spiked erratically, warning alarms blaring until suddenly, everything fell still. A tremor went through the vessel, and the controls locked up. Control, I'm losing power. My systems are... The words barely left his lips before a powerful surge coursed through the ship, and an intense, otherworldly energy wrapped around it. His body was thrown back as the vessel lurched forward, pulled by an invisible force, yanked deeper into the nebula. Outside, the green mists parted, revealing a shadowy planet that seemed to materialize from the void, blanketed in dark mountains and shrouded in mist. As Liam's vision refocused, a voice resonated in his mind, a voice that was both ancient and strangely intimate. Come closer, traveler. Your path has already been decided. The voice echoed through his consciousness, sending a shiver down his spine. Heart pounding, Liam gripped the controls tightly, trying to override the lock. But it was no use. Something was controlling his ship, guiding him downward as the planet's atmosphere thickened, turning dark violet and cloudy around him. Moments later, the ship crashed onto a desolate, rocky terrain with a jarring halt. Liam forced open the door, stumbling out onto the hard, foreign ground. The air was thick, humming with an unseen energy that raised the hair on his skin. Shadows flitted along the periphery of his vision, giving the unsettling impression of something watching him, lurking within the mist. "Hello?" he called out, his voice swallowed by the silence. A shape began to emerge from the shadows, flowing gracefully over the ground, veiled in robes as black as the sky above. As she drew nearer, the figure resolved into the form of a woman, her silver hair cascading down her shoulders, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her skin was an iridescent lavender, her eyes two deep, infinite pools of midnight. He took a step back, instinctively raising his hands. Who are you?" The woman's voice was calm, yet possessed a steely edge. "I am Vera, the last of my kind, and you, traveler, are here by fate, not by choice." Liam's heart hammered against his chest, but he held her gaze. "Look, I don't know who you are or what kind of game you're playing, but I have no intention of staying. My ship is damaged, and I need to—" "You won't be leaving," she interrupted smoothly, her voice laced with an authority that brooked no argument. Anger and disbelief surged within him. "Excuse me? I don't know what kind of world this is, but you can't just keep me here. I'm a commander of Earth's fleet, not some—" Vera raised a hand, and as if by an invisible force, he felt his mouth go dry, the words cut off as her energy pressed against him, filling the air with a heavy tension. "Titles mean nothing here," she replied, almost bemused. "Out here, only the oldest powers rule. Powers you couldn't begin to comprehend." Liam found his voice again, though it came out as more of a growl. "What do you want with me?" Vera's gaze bore into him, piercing through his bravado. "Want? I need you, traveler. You possess something rare, something vital to what remains of my people's legacy. I cannot let you go until I find it." He clenched his fists. "Listen, whatever you think I have, you're wrong. I don't have anything to offer you." Her lips curled into a mysterious smile. Humans, always so certain of what they do not know. She moved closer, circling him like a lioness eyeing her prey. Liam forced himself to stay still, his body tensed, but his heart thudded painfully as her gaze raked over him, as though peeling back his defenses layer by layer. "If you truly wish to be free, then prove your worth," she challenged. "Show me that you are not the frail creature your appearance would suggest." His pulse quickened, the urge to break free of her mocking stare propelling him forward. "Fine. If it's strength you want to see, then let's go." But Vera only laughed softly, a haunting sound that filled the air with an almost hypnotic melody. "Strength alone cannot open the doors I guard. To succeed, you must be willing to sacrifice something of yourself, something precious." Liam's confidence wavered for a heartbeat, but he pressed on. "Whatever you're after, you won't find it in me. And if you're so powerful, why do you need my help?" Her expression softened, if only for a moment, revealing a fleeting glimpse of something close to vulnerability. "My power is ancient, bound by rules even I must follow. You, however, are untouched by such constraints." "And you're expecting me to just trust you?" he asked, voice edged with skepticism. "I expect nothing," Vera said simply, her gaze turning hard again. "But know this, your path has led you here because it must. The choice is yours, but once made, it cannot be undone." Silence fell between them, charged with an unspoken understanding. Liam felt his heart pounding against the cage of his ribs, torn between the urge to resist and the strange pull this woman seemed to have over him, a magnetic force that defied his comprehension. Finally, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "If I help you, what happens to me?" Vera inclined her head, a mysterious gleam in her eyes. "Help me, and you may yet earn your freedom. Refuse, and I cannot guarantee you will leave this world unscathed." Liam's jaw tightened. He was no stranger to danger, but this was different. He was facing something ancient, something beyond the limits of reason and science, and yet, beneath her enigmatic words, he felt a strange spark, an echo of destiny that resonated with something buried deep within him. "All right," he said, his voice low but resolute. "I'll help you, but if you're lying, I'll find a way off this rock, with or without your blessing." Vera's smile widened, her eyes glinting with something between satisfaction and intrigue. Then let us begin, traveler. I promise you this, the path ahead will be unlike any you have ever walked. Liam's footsteps echoed against the rocky terrain as he followed Vera deeper into the twilight shadows of the alien landscape. The air here felt thicker, charged with an unnatural energy that pressed against his skin. Veils of mist curled around him, hiding the path ahead. Yet Vera moved through it with a grace that made her seem like part of the world itself, her form blending seamlessly into the darkness. "What exactly are we walking toward?" he asked, a note of frustration in his voice. She hadn't spoken since he agreed to her mysterious proposition, and the silence gnawed at him. Vera's voice came like a soft sigh carried on the wind. "Patience, traveler. Some answers cannot be rushed. They must unfold, like the stars emerging from night. Let me be clear. I didn't agree to poetic riddles. You said you needed me for something, that I have some rare quality. I want to know what that is, or I'm out," he said, pausing, his arms crossed defiantly. Vera stopped as well, her back to him. She stood perfectly still, and for a moment, Liam wondered if she'd even heard him. But then she turned, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that pinned him in place. "Tell me, Commander," she said softly. "Have you ever felt that you were part of something much larger than yourself? That there are forces beyond human understanding?" Liam hesitated. He was a scientist, a commander, trained to rely on facts and logic, not mysticism or destiny. But something about her question struck a nerve, resonating in a way that was both uncomfortable and undeniable. "Maybe," he admitted, almost reluctantly. "But that's not an answer to my question." She studied him with a look that bordered on amusement. "What you possess," she said, "is the energy that was lost, long ago and at great cost. Your kind call it life force. To my people, it was something more, a spark, a balance that once held worlds together. It's dormant in you now, yet its presence is unmistakable. I need your help to awaken it." He scoffed, the absurdity of her words making him shake his head. "Life force? You mean, you're saying I'm some kind of living battery? If that makes the concept easier for you to grasp, then yes," she replied, her lips curving in a slight smile. "But this energy is not as simple as a battery. It connects to things you cannot see, threads that bind realms and realms. It holds memories of an age when my people were guardians of that balance." "So why me?" he pressed. "Why not someone from your own kind?" Her expression darkened, and a hint of sadness flickered in her eyes. "Because I am the last, Liam. My people are no more. I have waited lifetimes for a carrier to emerge again, to find someone whose essence resonates with the ancient power we lost. And now, after ages of silence, here you are." Silence hung between them, thick with the weight of her revelation. Liam's mind raced, the reality of his situation taking shape in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. "I'm supposed to just believe that I'm some chosen being? You realize how that sounds, right?" Vera chuckled softly, a rich sound that echoed through the mist. "I understand your doubt. Humans are endearingly skeptical. But if you require proof, follow me and see for yourself what lies beneath the surface." With a resigned sigh, he fell into step beside her, warily scanning the strange terrain. They passed under towering rock formations that seemed to pulse with faint blue light, casting ghostly shadows along the path. Soon, they reached the mouth of a cavern, dark and foreboding, with strange symbols etched around the entrance, symbols that glowed faintly as Vera approached. "Where does this lead?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Into the heart of my world," she replied. "A place where only those who bear the spark can enter." "Convenient," he muttered, but his curiosity outweighed his skepticism as they descended into the cavern. Inside, the walls were covered in shimmering crystals that pulsed with an energy he could feel vibrating through his bones. Every step seemed to pull him deeper, as if the very earth were breathing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He felt Vera's gaze on him, studying him, and for a moment he had the unsettling thought that she could hear his heartbeat too. Finally, they entered a massive chamber that stretched beyond the reach of his eyes, a place that felt ancient and alive. In the center of the room was a dais, upon which lay a strange glimmering pool, its surface undisturbed, yet filled with swirling lights, like stars caught in liquid. "This is where it begins," Vera said, her voice reverent, almost hushed. "The wellspring of the lost energy. This pool is a remnant of what we once guarded, the power we were bound to protect." Liam approached the pool, mesmerized. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "But what do you need from me?" Vera gestured for him to kneel beside the pool. Reluctantly he did, feeling the hum of the energy vibrating beneath him. She joined him, reaching out to place her hands gently over his. Her touch was warm, unexpectedly grounding. "I need you to touch the water," she whispered. "Only one with the spark can awaken its power." He hesitated, glancing up at her. "And what happens if I do?" A glint of excitement shone in her dark eyes. "If you are indeed the one, it will respond to you. It will awaken, and through it, you will come to understand why you were chosen." Liam swallowed, feeling a strange mix of excitement and dread. He slowly extended his hand toward the pool, his fingers hovering just above its shimmering surface. The air seemed to still around him, the silence heavy with expectation. Then, with a deep breath, he dipped his fingers into the water. A surge of energy shot through him, sending waves of heat and light cascading up his arm, through his chest, until his entire body hummed with an intensity that bordered on pain. His vision blurred as the room around him fell away, and he found himself standing in a vast, star-filled void. Images began to flash before him, memories that weren't his own. He saw an ancient civilization thriving under twin suns, beings who wielded incredible power, bound to protect the balance of life across the cosmos. He felt their joy, their strength, and then their despair as something dark invaded their world, consuming everything in its path. He gasped, stumbling back as the visions faded, his mind reeling. Vera caught him, her hand steady on his shoulders. "Do you see now?" she asked softly. "Do you understand what we lost, what we need to reclaim?" He stared at her, struggling to process what he'd seen. "Those memories, that was your world. But why me? I'm just a man, a human. I don't have that kind of power." "You may not see it yet," Vera said gently, "but the spark within you has already begun to awaken. And as it does, you will learn to harness its power. Together, we will reclaim the energy that was stolen." Liam's mind buzzed with questions, but a single thought rose above them all. "And if I refuse? If I walk away?" Vera's face softened, though her gaze was resolute. "Then the energy will remain dormant, and my people's legacy will die with me. But know this, Commander Travers, what you experienced was only a fraction of what lies within you. If you walk away, you may find that the spark, once awakened, cannot be extinguished." He let her words sink in, realizing the gravity of his choice. He could return to his ship, to the familiar safety of his world, or he could follow her, plunging into an ancient mystery that threatened to consume him. Finally, he nodded, his decision made. "All right, Vera, I'll help you. But understand this, I'm no puppet. If you want my cooperation, I need answers. The truth." She inclined her head, respect shining in her gaze. "Then let the truth be our guide, Liam, for you and I are bound by the same fate now." With that, she took his hand, leading him further into the chamber, where a path of glowing stones awaited. He felt the surge of energy beneath his feet, as if the very ground recognized his presence. And as he walked beside her, he felt the beginnings of something strange, an inexplicable bond, a merging of purpose that pulled him deeper into her world, deeper into the mystery that held them both captive. The subterranean chamber felt colder now, filled with a quiet that pressed down on Liam and Vera as they walked deeper along the path of glowing stones. The glow around them seemed to dim, as though the ancient energy sensed the culmination drawing near. Vera's hand, still gripping his, trembled ever so slightly, a rare break in her usually unshakable composure. "Vera," Liam murmured, glancing at her. "Are you afraid?" Her gaze met his, searching, and for a moment he glimpsed vulnerability beneath her sorceress exterior. Afraid? Perhaps. There are forces here that surpass even my understanding. Forces I thought I could control. But there are always risks. Risks? He tightened his grip on her hand, more in instinct than reassurance. If I'm going to be your spark or whatever this is, I deserve to know what those risks are. Vera sighed, looking away. If this energy awakens in you fully, it could burn you from the inside out. The power of my people was once bound to the land, our spirits anchored in every corner of our world. You, as a human, are not meant to carry such weight. Then why did you bring me here? He asked, his voice thick with a blend of betrayal and despair. You've led me on, holding this cryptic promise of purpose in front of me, without ever telling me what it might cost. She remained silent, her gaze fixed on the path ahead, her features unreadable. But then, as if gathering courage, she began to speak. When I first sensed the spark in you, it was like a light in the void, a beacon after centuries of darkness. I didn't bring you here to use you as a pawn, Liam. I brought you because I believed you had the strength to share this burden, to help me bear the weight of a lost world. The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord deep within him. She hadn't seen him as a tool, he realized, but as a partner, someone who might bring the ancient power to life once more, not for her own gain, but to resurrect her people's legacy. A few moments passed in silence before Liam spoke, his voice softer now. What happens if we succeed? What happens if we awaken this power? She looked up at him, a fierce determination in her gaze. Then my people's strength will live again. And with it, I will finally have the means to challenge the darkness that devoured them. Liam arched an eyebrow, intrigued. You mean there's something else? Another power that consumed your people? Yes, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. A force of shadows, a malevolence that seeped into every corner of my world. It stole their light, erasing them from existence, one by one. I was spared, but only because I was bound to the wellspring, charged with its guardianship. He felt a surge of anger, not just at the injustice of her story, but at the beings, whatever they were, that had driven her to this desperate path. Then we'll face it together, he said firmly. But first, tell me what I have to do. She led him to the center of the chamber, where a massive crystal floated above a stone pedestal. The crystal pulsed with a deep, rhythmic glow, like the heartbeat of something ancient and alive. Around it, wisps of dark mist coiled and twisted, as if the shadowy remnants of her people's fate were waiting, lurking, just beyond reach. Vera positioned him in front of the crystal, and he felt the air grow thick with energy, like an electrical storm about to break. She placed her hands on his shoulders, her face inches from his, her eyes solemn and intense. Close your eyes, Liam. Breathe deeply. Let your mind slip away from your body like water running from the shore. He obeyed, closing his eyes, focusing on the rhythm of his breath, allowing her words to guide him. Slowly, he felt a warmth blossom in his chest, like an ember flaring to life, filling him with a strange yet familiar sensation, a feeling that connected him to something vast and eternal. There, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Do you feel it? Yes, he murmured, his voice distant, almost unrecognizable. But it's overwhelming, like trying to hold back an ocean. Don't hold it back, she urged. Let it flow through you. Let it carry you. With her guidance, he surrendered to the force building within him, allowing it to spread through his veins like fire. Images began to flood his mind, fragments of Vera's memories, her people, their lives, their joys, their sorrow. He saw their cities, bathed in golden light, and their final desperate stand against the encroaching darkness. Then, like a wave breaking, a surge of clarity hit him. He could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent, a force lingering in the shadows, waiting for the chance to consume him. "Vera," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "There's something else here, something dark." She squeezed his shoulders, her voice calm and steady. "It's the remnant of the force that destroyed my people. If you can withstand it, if you can bring your spark to its fullest potential, we can purge it, once and for all." He felt a shiver of fear, but pushed it aside, focusing instead on the warmth within him, the energy growing brighter and stronger. With a cry, he released the power, letting it explode outward in a wave of light that filled the chamber, pushing back the shadows. The dark mist recoiled, writhing as if in agony, yet it did not dissipate. Instead, it coiled together, forming a shape, an entity with eyes like burning coals, staring at him with an ancient malice. "Liam!" Vera shouted. "Stay with me!" The figure lunged toward him, and he braced himself, but Vera stepped between them, her hands raised, her voice echoing through the chamber in an ancient language he didn't understand. The creature halted, snarling, its form flickering. "Liam," she whispered urgently, "now is the time. Use your spark. Strike now." Gathering every ounce of energy within him, Liam thrust his hand forward, directing the force of his spark toward the entity. The light burned bright, searing through the darkness, and the creature shrieked, its form disintegrating as the energy consumed it. In an instant, the shadows vanished, and the room fell silent. Exhausted, Liam collapsed to his knees, panting as the last of his strength drained away. Vera knelt beside him, her face etched with relief and gratitude. "You did it, Liam. The darkness is gone. My people's memory is safe." He looked up at her, managing a weak smile. "So, that's it? The spark? The ancient force? It's over?" She shook her head, her eyes shimmering. "No, Liam. The spark still remains within you. You are bound to it now, as I am bound to the memory of my people. We may have driven back the darkness, but the energy has chosen you as its vessel." He stared at her, stunned. "You mean I'm still connected to this world?" Vera nodded. "Yes, you will carry a piece of it with you, wherever you go. You are now part of its legacy, a guardian of its light." He felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He hadn't asked for this, hadn't expected it, but somehow it felt right. He had found purpose in this strange world, a bond he hadn't realized he needed. "So, what now?" he asked, glancing at her. A smile played on her lips, a warmth in her gaze he hadn't seen before. "Now, we rebuild. Together. We bring life back to what was lost." As they stood together in the empty chamber, Liam felt a strange sense of belonging, as though he had found a home he never knew he was searching for. The spark within him burned steadily, a quiet promise of all that was yet to come. In that moment, he knew his journey with Vera had only just begun.